Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Mars Day. It is October the 10th, 2023. Can you hear me with these? We're trying a new, um, doesn't look like it's picking it up as well as my regular microphone does. That's a bummer. Okay, well, give me a second. Take a moment to breathe. Check in if you feel like it. And I will switch out my headphones. Okay, hi. Okay. Um, Sorry for that. I tried to get cool earbuds and have them work, but it did not. Um, okay. It's cold here. I don't know if it's cold where you are, but it's cold here. So shout out to one of the patrons that made this scarf for me. I love it, and it is clutch on these mornings that have just gotten cold. It's winter here. No, it's not. It's actually just fall. But it feels chilly. Okay, so anyway, hi, welcome to another Mars Day. Um, there's a lot going there's a lot going on. Do I need to tell you that? Probably not. Um, just checking in with whatever you're holding in the space. We're coming from all different spaces here live and watching on the replay. So just taking a moment to breathe and come into the space and consider what it is that you're carrying or holding as you move through today. We're coming off of Mercury and Venus, both changing signs in the sky last week. Venus is newly into Virgo after a long stay in Leo. And Mercury is into Libra, but it's moving very fast. It shoots all the way through Libra in just a couple of weeks. So by the end of this week, it's already halfway past the halfway point of its stay in Libra. But they're both in new signs this week. The other thing that we're still feeling from last week is that square between Mars and Pluto. It was exact over the weekend, but we'll feel it all week. As promised, it came with a lot of stuff, including another official war breaking out in the world, killing thousands of people on both sides. There's a lot that goes into any war. And so it's important to remember as we hold space for what's going on that we recognize that this is thousands of years, generations of trauma and abuse and oppression and religion and dogma and all the things for people on both sides, right? And if we're not directly in it, we have to be really careful about how we speak to it or about it. Because what happened over the weekend isn't happening in a vacuum, right? It comes after a long history with a lot of other things going on and a lot of nuance. And because Pluto's stationing in the week, this week, it can feel like this need for black and white, right? Like it's right or it's wrong, it's good or it's bad, they're good, they're bad, they're right, they're wrong. And not just in war, but in a lot of things. And so inviting the nuance of the human experience can be helpful as we move through and navigate some of this stuff. And at the end of the day, holding space for human beings, right? So it's heavy. There's a lot of stuff happening collectively. The transits this week don't get easier. We continue to feel that square between Mars and Pluto as Pluto stations this week. And we are officially in eclipse season. Our first eclipse happens this week on Saturn's Day. And we're going to spend the majority of the time today talking about that eclipse because it really does encompass most of the other energy that we're going to be feeling this week. Last week, we got the star card for the week guidance. So just taking us back to that energy. How did it show up? How can you still invite it to carry us through into this week's energy if you choose to? Okay. So again, we're in eclipse season. So the eclipse officially starts October the 14th, that's Saturn's Day, at 1:55 p.m. Eastern Time. The eclipse happens at 21 degrees and 7 minutes of Libra, and we're going to take a look at that chart a little bit later today. But that's the official eclipse time, but we're already feeling it, and eclipses last for 6 months. And sometimes with eclipses, we don't really start to feel or understand what's happening under the eclipse cycle for 3 months after, at the point where the sun gets to the nodal bendings. I've talked about the nodal bendings before. It's when it's the square between the opposition of the nodes. So when a planet gets 90 degrees away from either the north node or the south node, both, it's known to be at the bendings. And that's known as like an activation point or a crisis point or a moment of clarity in the cycle, any cycle, when it hits that 90-degree mark. So, yeah, so my point is that we might not fully understand what happens during or what the eclipse is doing or during the eclipse. It might take us months. 6 months is how long this energy kind of stays with us and lingers until the next eclipse season starts. So sometimes with eclipses, it's important not to try to fully comprehend or understand what's going on, but just to be present in the experience, especially emotionally, because any of the things tied to the moon are our emotions, our emotional internal experience. And so under an eclipse, it's important that we take time to be emotionally present, opposed to trying to figure out, which is going to be a little bit difficult because Mercury is also involved in this eclipse. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but it's eclipse season. So there's other stuff that's happening this week also with the eclipse. We have 3 different oppositions in the sky. We have Pluto stationing direct. We have Mars changing signs. So I'm going to run through what else happens on top of the eclipse this week. So we also have Pluto stationing direct, Venus opposite Saturn, the Sun opposite Chiron, Mercury opposite Chiron. We have Mars moving into Scorpio, Mars trining Saturn. And then we have Mercury quincunx Jupiter and the Sun quincunx Uranus. So those are the other transits that are happening kind of as we move through this eclipsey territory. But when eclipses come up, it can just activate a lot of things within our experience. Again, this is happening at 21 degrees of Libra. So if you have things at the end degrees of cardinal signs, specifically like 16 degrees to 26 degrees, something around there of cardinal, you're going to be feeling this eclipse most activated in your experience, right? But any placements around 21 degrees will be touching this eclipse and have some kind of influence by it. So taking a look at your chart and also recognizing the houses that Libra and Aries fall in, because that's what a lot of stuff is happening in. Two of the oppositions this week are also happening in that same Libra Aries axis of your chart. So taking a look at what houses those are, what themes are coming up, and what's feeling like it's being rebalanced or activated, recalibrated in some way for you. I have two kind of notes written this week. The first one is the reminder not to abandon yourself, right? When eclipse season comes, and this eclipse specifically is a south node eclipse, it means that the sun and the moon are conjunct the south node. And the south node, we talked about a little bit last week. Mars was conjunct the south node last week. And the south node is a purging point. It's a release point, but it's also where we hold past wounds, past trauma, intergenerational past life stuff that's still kind of hanging around. And so as an eclipse happens with the south node, it can bring up old wounds, old patterns, and it can like pull us back to those old kind of narratives and spaces. And so just keeping in mind of that, but also the importance of staying present and not abandoning yourself. Even if you fall into some of those old patterns, even if you fall back into things that you thought you had moved past or healed from, right? Don't abandon yourself in that moment, right? Listen, breathe, take time to hold yourself without judgment where possible. The second thing that I have written is not to conflate your triggers with old stories and narratives. And what I mean by that is sometimes when we get activated, we get into a space that my mentor taught me a phrase for called trauma drama. And all that means is that sometimes when we get activated, when we get triggered, and we have past trauma, our fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses get activated, and we start to act from a place of trauma, not of trigger. And there is a difference, right? When we're triggered, when we're activated, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're being traumatized, but our bodies and our experience can make us feel that way. And we can go into a place called trauma drama, right? And that gets really sticky. And there really isn't a good way to move through that, especially with another person. And so if you recognize that you're triggered or you're activated, and also you're feeling very like you're being traumatized, maybe you are, and maybe you aren't. I don't know what everybody's moving through all the time, right? And if you can take time to kind of pause and breathe and check in with yourself and notice if this is a trigger or if it is trauma for you. If you can't notice it, just take time. Just be with yourself. Try not to react from a place of trauma when we're in a place of activation. And if we do, then we just recognize it and we notice it. And whenever we notice it, either in the moment or afterwards, then we can act accordingly based on that. Right. So those are the two things that I'm like sitting with this week, right? Recognize trigger versus trauma drama, right? And when I'm in my trauma drama and how I can hold space for that moment and not to abandon myself. If I go into my trauma drama, if I fall back into old patterns, if I'm feeling very emotional, eclipses are emotional. They bring up a lot of things for a lot of people. And again, we have eclipses multiple times a year. So this is a common and consistent thing that we move through. You're not always going to feel them the same way as you did maybe the last time, or maybe someone else in your life is moving through. So just keeping that in mind. But, the invitation not to abandon yourself this week, and the invitation to pay attention to where we're conflating our triggers and allowing them to kind of tap into old narratives in our experience. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have questions. Okay. So I'm going to pause this week. Not this week, sorry. I'm going to pause and pull up the chart, but also make space for anybody to share anything that they're moving through, anything that's coming up for them. And then we will just go ahead and dive into the charts. Okay. So here is the chart for today, October the 10th. It's a Tuesday. So we'll go ahead and go through the day by day very quickly so you can see what the chart progression looks like. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So if you notice this part of the chart, Aries and Libra, these red opposition lines do not change all week. So this is Monday. And if we go back to today, it's still present there, right? So we still have that opposition happening. First, we have it happening today on the 10th with an opposition between the sun and Chiron. And then as things move through the week, the moon comes into that place as well. Mercury ends the week in an opposition to Chiron, and we also have the north node, or I'm sorry, the north node opposite the sun and the moon, which makes the eclipse, right? But that axis is activated all week. And then, we also have this opposition active between Pisces and Virgo, which has been an ongoing kind of theme that we've been feeling as well. And now that Venus has moved into Virgo, it's picking up on that opposition to Saturn. That was exact in the wee hours, but we're still feeling it today on Tuesday. So those are the two main transits that are exact on Tuesday: the opposition between the sun and Chiron, and the opposition between Venus and Saturn. The other thing that happens today is Pluto stations direct in the sky. So again, we feel Pluto stationing for weeks, like it really doesn't move very much for multiple days before it stations. So it's been stationing. We've been feeling that station in the sky, amplified by that square to Mars that is still very much present in the sky, just 1 degree away. So all right, so just a quick run through. This is tense, right? This energy is tense. Oppositions can, bring up two polarities, right? We can feel ourselves going back and forth in our own experience, or we can be having this like opposition to the other, right? Someone else can come in and play that role of the opposition. So if we're coming in as the sun, right, and we come in as our full authentic self, then maybe somebody comes in and they trigger that, or they wound they bring up some core root wound around our identity or how we show up or how we don't show up. And that can be, on purpose, or it can just be someone that is doing something that we wish we could do. And so it pings some kind of wound within us. And so we have that opposition in the sky. We also have Venus and Saturn. And Venus and Saturn opposition can be a blockage or a limitation of some kind of Venus thing. It can also bring us forward into some kind of long-standing relationship, or it can remind us the importance of building maturity to get to a certain place. But really, an opposition makes us aware of some kind of lack, limitation, blockage, etc. And so, yeah, so those two oppositions are present today. And then, like I said, we have Pluto stationing. So that is Tuesday the 10th. On this day, also, we have on Tuesday, we also have the moon freshly into Virgo. It's going to have a conversation with Venus in the morning, and then so it's also opposites Saturn. So this can make us feel like isolated or depressed even. Moon Saturn is depressive vibes. So yeah, that's present as the moon moves through the beginning of Virgo. And then we get to Wednesday, and on this day, the moon is moving through mid-Virgo. And we don't have any direct transits that are happening, but what I did want to note on this day is Mars is at the anaretic 29th degree of Libra. Mars doesn't love to be in Libra. It's about to move into its home sign, its domicile of Scorpio. And so it's kind of itching to get into a place where it can flex its muscles, sharpen its knives, and go to work, do its thing. So on this day, it might feel a little Mars angsty. And we still have that square to Pluto going on, and these oppositions kind of fueling that angst and frustration and, polarization even that we might be feeling. So it's then on the following day, on Thursday, the 12th, that Mars moves into Scorpio. And Mars, like I said, is at home in Scorpio. It's its internal domicile. And Mars here is very receptive. It likes to get to the bottom of things. It likes to hold on to grudges here in Scorpio. It likes to, it acts very intentionally. And sometimes secretively as well. So keeping that in mind for collective, but also for personal reasons, Mars now has more ability to do Marsian things. If you're looking for a time to release or do some kind of releasing ritual, now would be a great time, as Mars is now in the sign of Scorpio. So it's a really good time to cut ties, to do any kind of that magic. Keep in mind that we are in eclipse season. So that puts a whole nother level onto any kind of magic, spell work, ritual work that we're doing. I don't advise it under an eclipse, but I also am constantly releasing, whether it's eclipses or not. So, it really depends on how you feel. As Mars moves into this, there's a trine that happens to Saturn. And this is a really beautiful aspect. This is like the highlight of the week. This is the balm of the week. Trines are supportive and flowing. And when we get Mars, which is our action and the way we do and go, in a conversation with Saturn, which is our structures and our stability and our security, we're able to really put some things in place that help us feel a little bit more stable. So I really love this trine. It's not exact until the following day, on Friday the 13th in October. Hello, the day before an eclipse. Anyway, so I love this trine between Mars and Saturn. This is know and go coming together in like a really beautiful way to put some structure to our motivations, Mars, right? So the other thing, though, that I skipped ahead kind of to the 13th, but on the 12th, there's also a quincunx that happens between Mercury and Jupiter. And this is kind of a uncomfortable shifting, that needs to happen but might not be able to happen between Mercury, the details, and Jupiter, the big picture, right? This could also be that we just say too much, or we can't find the right words, or there's some kind of irritant or irritation in the way that we're healing around our like familial and friendly relations can also come up around this quincunx. So that happens on the 12th. And then we get to Friday the 13th, and the moon is now into Libra. So it starts to pick up on that eclipse energy much heavier here. And then, Friday the 13th gets a bad rap, as does anything witchy and woo and magical and, all the things. But Friday the 13th, it's a witch's day, right? It's a really powerful time for a lot of people. And so I just wanted to note that here, and that exact trine between Mars and Saturn happens on this day as well. I really like this trine to bring a little bit of support and sturdiness again to our motivations and our actions, Mars. This can also bring us the ability to put up strong boundaries to reinforce our energetic bodies, to help our physical body. I don't know if that made sense. But trines are very spiritual and energetic, right? And so, and Saturn being boundaries and Mars being the body, there's a way that we can kind of navigate our energetic boundaries to enforce healthy physical boundaries. I hope that made sense. Okay, so on the following day, it's Saturday, and we get to the eclipse. And so, like I mentioned, the eclipse happens at 1:55 p.m. Eastern time on Saturn's day. And it's happening at 21 degrees and 7 minutes of Libra. So you can find that in your chart. You can see any of the planets that you have between about 16 and 26 or 27 degrees of a cardinal sign, which is going to be Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. But really any sign, right, is going to be touched by that 21, about 16 to 26, 27 degrees will be touched by this eclipse. So, some of the things just to keep in mind, this eclipse is ruled by Venus, and so is the following eclipse. So the Venus story, Venus coming out of Leo and now into Virgo, whatever that retrograde story with Venus was for you, it's going to be part of what we talk about in these eclipses, or what comes up for us in these eclipses. So as you're considering what's coming up, if you're considering what's coming up under the eclipses, tie that in with Venus, because although Venus isn't making any direct aspects in this eclipse, it's ruling it. And so, it's freshly into Virgo, freshly off that opposition to Saturn, and the ruler of the eclipse. So just keeping that in mind, that Venus is our values, right? It's our relationships, it's our finances. And so whatever that recalibration was with Venus is now integrating in a deeper way, and it's recalibrating some of the things in our life to match those values. And that can be uncomfortable. And, we can have things that are sudden changes under eclipses. There can be, new beginnings and endings of things, maybe shocking or sudden shifts and changes that happen under the eclipse. And again, these eclipses last for 6 months, so it might not happen on this exact day. But on this exact day, there may be some definite clues or trails of what is coming up for you. Okay, so then as we get into this specific eclipse a little bit more. So we see that it's happening at 21 degrees, and at 17 degrees of Libra is Mercury. And so the eclipse, we know, is moon ruled, so it's our emotions, but Mercury is here as well. So it's also our intellect, and it's our thoughts, right? So not only are we in our heart and in our heart because it's ruled by Venus, and in our emotions because it's a moon lunation, but we're also intellectual. We want to understand it because Mercury's here. But Mercury's in an opposition to Chiron. So the understanding might not come. Again, that's common with eclipses, that we don't fully understand what's happening until months down the line. But this opposition to Chiron also brings up core wounding, right? Again, to that trauma drama, right? Conflating narratives, stories, Mercury. Mercury's, at 17 degrees here. So considering if it's touching any of your planets, but this can be core wounding around our beliefs, around our communication, around how we fit into our surroundings. Mercury is our local community space. It's also our friendships and our families. Those kind of relations are ruled by Mercury. So that can all come up. Venus is the ruler again. So this is a very relational, Venus and Mercury both present here. It's a very relational eclipse, how we fit in, how we relate to others. Venus, more passionate and romantic relation. Mercury, more familial and friendship and community-based relation. But, core wounding, opposite Chiron, core wounding around some of that stuff can come up as well. The other thing about this that I mentioned previously was that this is a south node eclipse. So this is pulling us back to old patterns, to old wounding. This commonly when we have south node eclipses, excuse me. Commonly when we have south node eclipses, there can be a moment for some of us where we think, damn it, like I knew better. I knew better than to do that. Right. But you got sucked up in the moment and you went right back into those old patterns. It can be very easy. And when you notice, whether you notice it before it happens or while it's happening or after it happens, consider what you can release or let go of. Right. Even if you went back into the old pattern and you saw again that, like, damn, that doesn't work. Right. Or that doesn't feel good. How can you release or let go or release the grasp? Because the thing about eclipses is we don't want to hold on to things, right? Because that does nothing but, when there's that thing about like holding a rope, instead of just letting it go, you get all the like rug burn of the rope and it goes anyway, that's kind of the eclipse vibe, right? We loosen our grip around eclipses to let go what is no longer serving us, to make space for things to come in. And because this is a south node eclipse, it's the letting go portion, right? So release, let go, sit down, anything that is no longer serving us. Be present emotionally during this time, during eclipses. It's not necessarily a time to figure it out or understand it, even though that Mercury opposite Chiron may make us feel like we need to understand it. We need to integrate it. But it's an opposition. So there might be wounding alone around the need to integrate, but not being able to. So sitting with ourselves and being present emotionally is the move for eclipses. The other thing that's happening under this eclipse is there's a quincunx present with Uranus. It's actually the closest thing that's happening to the exact new moon. The new moon eclipse is at 21 degrees and Uranus is at 22 degrees, and they're in a quincunx. So again, bringing up that irritation, right? We felt it all last week. We have quincunx energy all month long. So it's really that presence of that irritant or annoying kind of thing that we're just here sitting with, that there's no like real moving through it or getting the answers or getting the relief that we need, because it's Uranus. This can also make us anxious and nervy. We might have additional issues with sleep or meditation or grounding or breath work when Uranus is activated in this way. So whatever you do for your nervous system can be helpful here. So that is Saturn's day. And then we get into the 15th, which is Sunday. And, luckily on the next couple days, there's not a ton of stuff that happens after the solar eclipse. On Sunday, we have the exact quincunx between the sun and Uranus. So that pulls back in some of that irritant, angsty, nervy energy that we were talking about before. But then, that's the end of it. We don't have anything else that happens on this day. On Sunday, the moon moves into Scorpio. It hits a conjunction to Mars. It hits that trine to Saturn. So that can be supportive of that release. So again, if we went back into old patterns, maybe this is the day where we say, damn it, I got caught back in that old pattern and now I'm ready to release it in a new way or let it go in a new way. And so that energy is here as the moon moves through and touches, Mars in Scorpio. And that is that. The following week, we have some other opportunities to release and purge as the sun and Mercury both come into a conversation with the South Node. Mars did that last week, if you want to have an idea of what that is. But, we talked about the South Node. It's that purging, that release point. And so as the sun and Mercury come into that, that's our consciousness and our beliefs, our understandings, our mental processes coming into that release point as well. So that's on the docket for the following week. So, just keep that in mind as things are coming up and you may feel yourself moving like old patterns and core wounding kind of coming up and needing to be released and let go of. And there's a lot of opportunity for that at the end of this week and the beginning of next week as well. So, okay. So that's the astrology of the week. I'll go through the transits again, just by day so that you have an idea of what those are in order. So starting on Mars Day, 10/10, we have Venus opposite Saturn, Pluto stations direct, and the sun opposite Chiron. On the 12th, we have Mars moving into Scorpio and Mercury quincunx Jupiter. On the 13th, we have Mars trine Saturn. On the 14th, we have the Libra new moon solar eclipse at 21 degrees and Mercury opposite Chiron. On the 15th, we have the sun quincunx Uranus. And that is the astrology of the week. So what I wanted to do to kind of end is do a tarot card for the week and then an oracle card for the moon. So let's do the oracle first, because we've just been talking about the eclipse so much, so that energy is most present. So I will pull the card here for guidance, support, grounding, something to work with, consider, hold as we work with this eclipse this week, but also into the future, remembering that we work with eclipses for 6-month periods. I'll show the card here and then I'll post it on Instagram with the book reading, but I always invite you to have your own experience with the cards. So consider what comes up for you organically, what you see, what sticks out, what you feel, what memories pop into your mind, what images pop into your mind or stick out from the card as you look at it. It's all important to notice and to help you to connect with your intuition and what's happening for you internally specifically. So this card is specifically for the folks on my Patreon, those that are here live and that watch on the replay. Pulling the timelines together now. Inviting you to make space, to breathe, to center, to receive any of the messages that come forward today. A card of support, guidance, to be with, to hold, to commune with, as we move through this Libra eclipse at 21 degrees of Libra. considering anything that comes up for you organically and intuitively. This card is number 17, Medicine Woman, or Medicine Person. Okay. And keeping in mind that last week we pulled for October from that same deck, and we got the ceremony card. So keeping that in mind as you move through as well, how ceremony can be helpful. What comes up for you around ceremony? Do you have trauma or triggers or activation tied to that word? If so, is there a refrain? Are there things around ceremony that you can pull that do resonate, but leaving some of the rest of the stuff? So that was for October. Medicine Woman, Medicine Person is for the solar eclipse in Libra. And now we will pull a card for the week. This will be a tarot card for the week ahead. And as always, I invite you to take the time and space you need to center and ground and prepare to receive any messages that come forward to you. It doesn't have to do with anything that I talk about with this card now or in the future or anything else that you see about this card. Play with it intuitively and allow your own intuition to speak through you, what memories come up, what you notice in the card, how your body feels, etc. Feel free to sit with the card, journal with it. I will show it to you here and I'll post it on Instagram. Then later this week, all things, I don't know, going the way I plan. I'll post more about it with the Tarot with Mary on Patreon later this week. But again, what comes up for you is always the most important to notice and to be with in your own internal experience. Card for the week ahead for the folks on my Patreon, specifically those watching the replay or here live. Part of guidance, support, to be with, to commune with, to learn from as we move through the week. Noticing what comes up for you, what you see, what you feel. We get the Temperance card. Okay. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you. Let me know what comes up for you, how you're feeling, what you're moving through. I love to hear from you in the comments, in my messages, wherever feels comfortable for you. Also, there's a chat now on Patreon. So if you don't have the app, you can download it and there's a little chat. So you can ask your questions. You can share what comes up for you in the Mars Day. It's your space, not my space. So feel encouraged to ask your questions, share your stuff, engage with each other as much as feels safe and organic and accessible for you. And yeah, so it's just another space to be. But I think you can only get it on the app. So, okay, bye. We'll chat soon. Have a week. I look forward to hearing from you.